Welcome as the Nico fallout continues with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. We've got a lot to get to in the program today. Did Josh Heupel really pull the trigger on Nico? That'll be what the H a little bit later coming up. Also, how does Nico compare to other quarterbacks that have transferred in this transfer portal? Also, this day in Tennessee sports history, we'll get into how important is this as the transfer portal opens now to make sure you don't see a mass exodus, because there might be concern over how Nico was handled. Players are always going to back players. I've said that before. So I'm interested to see if you have many players enter the transfer portal. Go ahead and click that like or subscribe button. We'll also be joined by T. Scott Jones of Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Caleb Yeoman's effort yesterday as he filled in for me. And Caleb, I spoke to you over the weekend as we turned out an incredible amount of copy and more on Nico right now on offthehooksports.com. But as you let this kind of sink in a little bit before we get to today's tough question, Caleb, first, how are you, sir? And what do you make of how this all went down incredibly fast?
I am doing well. I will say that it was crazy. It's still kind of surreal. We do a regular show Thursday. The on-3 report comes Thursday night, and we're doing our show Friday, just regularly like what to make of this on-3 report. And then out of the blue, Nico's not at practice. And I think the minute we hear Nico's not at practice, you and I are both like, this is probably over, right? I mean, Will West comes on the show and tells us he wasn't at practice for like the divorce. I think it was pretty clear the divorce was happening then, wasn't it?
It was happening then. I didn't feel lock, stock, and barrel because if you remember, I asked the question of Will. I said, if you were to bet, would you say 100% that Nico is going to be your starter for the Syracuse game? He said, no, not 100%. And I think you were a little bit surprised. Correct me if I'm wrong. I still thought it was 80 to 90% he would be a part of the orange and white game, and he would continue to be a part of Tennessee's plans. I threw the 100% out there as kind of a lock, and I agreed with Will at the time. I was jumping all over that. I didn't think it was 100% that he was going to be there. And then the news of practice obviously probably lowered that to about 60%. Listen, here's the bottom line. You just can't, Caleb, have a player hold a team hostage. And this isn't the first time this has happened with Nico, and it wasn't going to be the last. So you really run the risk, Caleb, of if you allow him back, does he pull these, or his parents? I want to be real clear on this. I don't think this is Nico's fault. Now, you could say, hey, he should be more assertive, take control of his career. Well, he's 19. So I think that's a lot to ask. I think his dad and his family and his handlers played it extremely poorly. But I don't blame this on Nico. I really don't. I just wonder what the family's thinking. And I wonder where they'll go, because I'm seeing Tulane, North Carolina. If they're worried about money that much, North Carolina, Louisiana, and California, where he's from and could end up going to college there, they all have state income taxes. So $2.2 million will go a lot further at Tennessee with no taxes in Knoxville than it will at LA. LA, you're probably medium income.
Exactly. I mean, you're right. That's a huge deal. Now, again, as we talked about before, I think the number's like, because of how high the sales tax is in Tennessee, it's like 400,000, I think, or maybe it's 350. There's a specific number where if you're within that number, then you negotiate the money and you don't really worry about the state income tax because it's not going to affect you as much. But once you get to 2.2 million, that's a high, whatever the state income tax is, it's usually based on a percentage. That's a high amount of money based on, that's a significantly high amount of money. 5% of 2.2 million is a lot. And so if it's 5% of 350,000, you're not talking about a lot. But if you're talking about 5% of 2.2 million, you are talking about a ton of money. So I'm with you. I think that, and as we saw Dave be in two places at once right there, guys, Dave's very magical.
That's pretty magical. We had a technical issue this morning. We're up and running now, though. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I think just in general, I think it was so short-sighted in so many different ways. But again, as we're going to get to today, there were a lot of, we don't know how all these details played out. Let's just put it that way, because there's some more.
I've done some digging, and I think I can provide some insight here. What the H is now, and it's brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Listen, what the H? Why would you call any other lawyer? Play to win, banksandjones.com.
Oh, I've never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. Banksandjones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, are you buying the narrative that Josh Heupel stood up to the Iamaleava family that, and I spent all that time trying to learn how to pronounce his name. Are you buying into that narrative? Because Caleb, I'm not. I think that ultimately, if Nico would have wanted to come back, Josh Heupel would have allowed him to miss Friday's practice and come back, even though that's an unforgivable sin for no reason. And Caleb, I don't want it to sound like I'm raining on anybody's parade, but the bottom line is the player has the leverage here. And there's a reason that he did this, not before the spring game, but before the end of spring practice and before the spring transfer portal. Caleb, I'm not buying the narrative that Josh Heupel had all this under control and everything's golden. I think Nick Iamaleava, the father, overplayed his hand a little bit. But I don't know that Josh Heupel won this thing. I don't think there is a winner, but I don't believe that Josh Heupel suddenly has a better team because of all the players that rally behind him. One, I don't think players rally behind coaches that give a player a hard time. In general, I think they realize the shortcomings of what Iamaleava was doing. But I also would add this, Caleb, you lost a really good quarterback. And you don't have one that is proven. This could take Tennessee from 10 wins where I had them to 8. They've got a lot to replace. And now suddenly you have a quarterback that you have to replace. So did you think that Josh Heupel valiantly won this divorce, or how would you characterize it? Because I'm not buying that he was the one that ultimately pulled the trigger. I do believe it was Nico by not showing up at practice on Friday and by not taking any of his phone calls, which is what I'm told, from Thursday afternoon-ish to it's over.
Yeah, look, I think that I'll just be honest with you. I don't think Josh Heupel made the call on this. Now, Josh Heupel comes out looking better. I do think this, Dave. I'll say this up front. I think Tennessee did draw a line in the sand of saying we're not going to negotiate past this moment. That they didn't say we're going to move on from him, but I did think they held firm to say we're not negotiating here at this level right now. And I think that line in the sand was something that had an impact on Nico Iamaleava deciding to leave. But I don't think Josh Heupel said, you didn't show up for practice, so we're done with you. Get out of here. I don't think he did that. I'm just going to tell you this right now. I'm willing to bet a lot of money he didn't do that.
Well, and my history backs up all that you said. Now, I realize Philip Fulmer is one of the coaches I covered the most, but he was in love with talent. He'd bend over backwards for talent. And I think ultimately that Josh Heupel would have done that, but he was never given the opportunity to. I think if Nico picks up the phone, he tells him, hey, let's work this out. Let's get you on the field for the orange and white game. I don't think this was Josh Heupel saying you're out.
No, I don't think it's Josh Heupel saying you're out either. No, absolutely not. I think it's Josh Heupel basically here's what it is. It's almost like a situation of do you think it's a situation of Nico wanted Tennessee to come crawling back to him, and Tennessee was more like, kind of like, when your girlfriend like ghosts you for a day or so, and then you're like, you know what? I'll play her game. I'm not going to talk to her. I'm going to do my own thing. And then she like wants you to talk to her again. Do you think Tennessee was like, we'll let you back, but we're not going to come crawling back to you. We're going to move on with or without you. And the ball's in your court. And Nico decided, okay, if the ball's in my court, maybe not Nico, but they were like, we're leaving pretty much.
Well, either way, both parties, not Nico's dad, and Josh Heupel, because he essentially had to dug their heels in the sand, did they not?
Yes, they both sides dug their heels in the sand to a certain degree. And look, here's what the truth of the matter is, though. Part of this still leads to Well, I mean, we'll talk about this in the second segment, I guess, because we're going to talk about who won the divorce. But in this way, it's like the way Heupel said it on Saturday, and I played the clip yesterday, Dave. He was asked, like, when did you know you were moving on from Nico? And Josh Heupel was like, nobody, not showing up for practice Friday, no communication, and then just said that, which implies that Heupel made the decision. But he was very careful not to say he made the decision. You know what I mean? So I think Heupel is, to his credit, he's getting out in front of this and he's spinning it from Tennessee's perspective. Because let's call this what it is. Paul Feinbaum said this on yesterday's show. This is the first holdout in college football NIL negotiations, right? This is like the first official holdout. And honestly, in the first official holdout, it looks to the public like Josh Heupel didn't blink. And Tennessee was refusing to blink. Now, I do think, so here's what I think. I do think this. I think Tennessee was standing its ground on what they were willing to negotiate with Nico. But Dave, I also think this. I don't think it was just about money. I do believe what TJ Houshmandzadeh said on Saturday, and I talked about this yesterday. I think the Nico team was trying to force Josh Heupel to incorporate pro-style elements into his offense. And I'll give my own speculation. I think they thought he was going to work on some of that in spring practice, and he didn't do any of that because, guys, spoiler alert, you don't go to Tennessee if you want to learn a pro-style offense.
Agreed, but there's also been a lot of talk, and I've been told that he wanted better players around him in the spring transfer portal.
I think he got those.
Yeah, the spring transfer portal just opens today. So
no. I think the better players was a winter negotiation. He wanted better protection, and that's why they got Sam Pendleton and Wendell Moe.
No, I tend to agree with that. I've been told he wanted more, though. He wanted another receiver. Now, you can't do that in the spring portal and expect them to have an impact in year one. It's just not going to happen. And it's not going to happen for Nico wherever he goes. He's probably going to be a backup to start the season. If he goes to Tulane, North Carolina, or wherever. And I think him with Bill Belichick is pretty darn interesting. I would like to be a fly on the wall for those meetings.
Oh my gosh, that would be wild.
That would be golden. But essentially, this is not the first time that it happened with Nico. It happened, I'm told, before the college football playoff game against Ohio State. He understood the leverage, and he played it and played himself right out of a position at Tennessee, a starting position in the SEC. He is not going to do better than he did at Tennessee. 2 million, or let's say 2.2, I've heard, and potentially 2.5. He is not going to do better than he did at Tennessee. Let me reiterate that. He is going to a school with less football heritage and legacy. He's probably going to make the same or less money, and he might be on the bench this year. What the H, brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones.
Caleb, will Nico come even close to the same type of job he had at Tennessee? I say no. And I'll take it a step further. I think this affects his NFL future, not because teams are going to say, oh, man, we don't want a guy who's upset about money. They're all upset about money in the NFL. But just from the standpoint of he's going to have to learn two different offenses, it stunts his growth as a player. Caleb, I do think this turns him from a first 2 or 3 round pick to perhaps lower than that. And we know quarterbacks are overvalued, but here's the thing that people don't talk about in the NFL draft. They're also to some extent undervalued. After you get past that first grouping, quarterbacks will fall down the board. So could we be talking about a quarterback that you and I both thought was going to be in the NFL, was going to be a star in college and the NFL? Could we be talking about a guy who doesn't get drafted?
I mean, that's certainly possible. That is certainly a possibility by doing this. But I mean, from the other side, we could also be talking about a guy who goes and balls out at another school and a Josh Heupel who goes 7-5 for the next 2 years. You know what I mean? So it's it depends on how this all plays out. I'll say this. If you commit to Tennessee, you commit to be a high draft pick to get the guaranteed dollars. Because truth be told, and I think you would agree with me on this, Dave, when you play in Tennessee's system, you play to put up the video game numbers, right? You don't play to be ready to go to the NFL for your rookie season. Like, isn't it kind of, you should almost accept the fact that if you're a rookie, you're going to have to relearn everything when you go to the NFL if you play for Josh Heupel, aren't you?
Yeah, you'll be. I mean, if he makes the NFL, I know some people in the message board don't think he's going to make the NFL. I think he has the talent to still do so. And I know that coaches their drafts on talent. So I still think he'll have a shot in the NFL, not nearly as good as he would have.
Yes, no, I agree. I think he'll have a shot in the NFL. I think that I think the big thing is, but getting back to getting back to who do we believe in this segment? So you genuinely think Heupel is putting a media spin on the idea that he pulled the trigger?
Yes. I think that Bill Martin, who worked with him, got him to deliver a very concise, decisive message on Saturday after the orange and white game. I thought it was pretty obvious by the coverage of the Ball Network, who they're not supposed to be impartial, guys. They're not supposed to be objective. They were able to interview Josh Heupel during the game. I don't know if you heard that at all at times. And then right after the game, he was able to address it. Maybe it was just in the tail end of the game, but he had the narrative ready, and he made sure that the Ball Network was ready to ask those questions. And then he delivered it to the media as well. The worst thing he could have done is just brush it under the carpet.
Well, that narrative didn't just stay within Tennessee. That narrative got to everybody because it was all over ESPN yesterday, and the story was Josh Heupel didn't blink and decided to move on from Nico Iamaleava. So if that's the case, boy, did Tennessee put a good PR spin on this and do a good job of it. So our skepticism, guys, is that Nico ultimately made the decision to leave, not Tennessee. And
I believe that firmly.
You believe it firmly? Yeah.
I think Josh Heupel handled it the right way. I mean, he didn't call Spire Sports and have them cut another check immediately. He didn't just let it slide and Nico's not in the orange and white game and this is drama headed into this week. He didn't do that. He could have. I don't think he had much of a choice. I think this was a logical thing to do. I guess all the fawning over the way he handled it is a little strong for me. I don't know that he had a choice.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of where I'm landing too. He didn't really have a choice, so he had to get out in front of it and put a PR spin. I'll just tell you guys this. You don't have a guy work with you throughout all of spring practice, be your starting quarterback, take all the first team reps, and then for one day of practice and put it this way. You're not making the decision to move on because of one day of skipped practice if he's your leader throughout all of spring practice, right? You're at least going to try to get to the bottom of the situation first.
I mean, how many players in the 30 or so years that I've 25 or so covered Tennessee do I remember skipping practice? I'm not going to count James Banks because he was there in attendance, but he wasn't practicing a lot of the time. I can remember two. Jawan Jennings left practice, right? And Albert Toina left in the middle of practice. That's three that are coming to the top of my head. And I did rack my brain earlier this morning to think about it. You just don't miss practice.
Well, didn't Albert Hainsworth just walk out of practice and then come back with a 10-foot pole?
Well, he was told to leave because he was about to destroy Will Offenhusel at the time, which would have been bad for all parties involved. The show is represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location.
All right, Caleb's a little bit mad at me because I messed up the order a little bit, so we'll work through that. But I want to get to who actually won this thing because based off what I just told you about Josh Heupel, I don't think it's a slam dunk that Heupel won. It's our poll question as well. and it's brought to you by Double D Piping. Today's tough question is now.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, who won the Vols? Nico divorce. Nico with 2% of the vote. Heupel with 47% of the vote. No one, and that's the right answer, 51% of the vote. I especially hate it for this young man. I have seen parents get involved in either playing time or, as you mentioned, X's and O's or personnel and that sort of thing. And it's the kid who always suffers. And I hate that for Nico, because was he perfect like we thought? No, probably needed to mature a little bit. Probably should have played his first year. I still go back to that, and I wonder if that wasn't the seed for some discontent with the Iamaleavas. He should have played above Joe Milton. But now I don't see how you can say that either side won this thing. Listen, Josh Heupel gets all the positive pub right now, Caleb. But what happens if 5 Vols jump in the transfer portal? What happens if they win 7 games instead of 10? This is suddenly an offense that is going to have to be completely rebuilt with the other losses on the offensive line, the skill position players, of course, Dylan Sampson included in that. Man, this is not going to be easy to overcome.
No, I mean, this is not. I mean, they built everything around Nico. I still think Tennessee won the divorce, though. I know largely because it's just from what I watched on TV yesterday. And I know that's kind of weird to say, but Dave, there are people that I have never seen that I would never see be partial to the school that were partial to Tennessee. And I'll just give you a quick example. We know First Take has been a shock jock ESPN show for 10 years. It's the flagship show of ESPN now with Stephen A. Smith. And they have been consistently pro player, consistently anti-NCAA, anti-university. They've been one of those, like, I mean, beyond me and you, that the idea that schools and coaches are robbing the players of money. They all were like, no, this is Nico's fault. Stephen A., Shannon Sharp were both like, yeah, no, Nico violated his contract. Tennessee did what they had to do. And I did not see that coming yesterday. When you've lost those guys who are the most pro player people in college football possible, Tennessee won this divorce. They won it, and they won it because of the way they spun it from a PR perspective. And also, they won it because, Dave, I think they sent shockwaves through the rest of college football. Because the Tennessee message has been, and this is what we talked about last year when Tennessee was landing people. Josh Pate was reporting this. When they do NIL, they don't do NIL from A. They do NIL A, B, C, D, E, and F. And what does that mean? Tennessee, more than most schools, was one of the first schools to promise you more money on the back end than the front end. To say that if you deliver for us, you'll get paid. But we're going to
commonplace now. Happened at Michigan, won them a national title. Happened at Notre Dame, got them to a college football finals. Is that what we call it? A championship game. And then it's happening at Georgia, I'm told.
Yes, it is. And so this all started. And so Tennessee now has really all of a sudden completely reset the trend. Now, maybe that hurts the reputation with players going forward. I don't think so, though, because, Dave, I'll just be honest with you. Some reports I've heard on the inside is that I think players were frustrated with Nico's team constantly stringing the school along, too. And
I agree.
Yeah, and that was getting to a point. I mean, let's be honest. You're an offensive lineman. You're playing for what, 100,000, maybe 200,000 when you're negotiating, and you come to block for this kid who is making $2 million. It's very public, and you hear he's stringing you along. I may or may not stay because I want 2.5 million, or I want 3 million, or I want the offense to change. And as Joel Klatt reported yesterday, let's point this out. Joel Klatt reported that it is true that Nico was upset about, not Nico, but Nico's team was upset about the offensive system. No other player is going to be sympathetic to that. And no recruit's going to be sympathetic to Nico on that front, because it's very out front, Dave, what Josh Heupel's offense is. When Nico committed to Tennessee, you had about a 5-year body of work of what Josh Heupel runs to know what you were committing to. So
true. I will take what you said a step further too, Caleb. I think that Yeah, players might not rally behind Nico as players most oftentimes do rally around each other. But really pragmatically, if I'm player X and I would like a little bit more money, I'm not going to try to strong arm Josh Heupel. I will tell you that. I'm not going to skip practice. I'm not going to assume that just because he loved me in recruiting that he's going to continue to love me when I'm asking for more money. There's a way to go about things and there's a way not to. And I think that these players right now, if they're not, they should be scared that if they cause too much of a tussle, a ruckus, whatever the word you want to use, that they could be off the team. And let's remember this too. Tennessee and Josh Heupel at some point had to take a stand and prevent a bad precedent from continuing. What did Ricky Gibson III do? He negotiated for more money because he knew that Tennessee was thin now with Jermod McCoy injured at cornerback. What did Mike Matthews do? He negotiated for more money. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody else that jumped in the transfer portal, Caleb.
No, what you're forgetting is Boo Carter flirted with it, but he didn't negotiate for more money. He negotiated for playing time on offense.
Well, I guarantee you got a little bit more cash too. But you're right. But I'm going to be pretty hesitant because Nico's your star player. If you'll do without him, you'll do without any defensive tackle.
Yeah. And also we know this. It's not like Tennessee's is just going to blindly side with the star player. Now, here's where this really resonates, Dave. I've been thinking about this. If you're a linebacker, a defensive tackle, a wide receiver, you realize your coach isn't just going to side with his quarterback over you. And that resonates let's call it what it is. Let's put this out there. Particularly guys like defensive tackles, there's a little bit of resentment towards the quarterback, isn't there, on a football team? Even if he's your teammate, because
it would surprise you to know that there are offensive linemen and defensive players that are jealous, in particular when players celebrate too much because they're like, man, I never get the ball. That still happens in college. I know that that's odd.
No, it's in defensive linemen are literally coached to hate the quarterback and want to tackle him every play. So of course they're going to feel a certain sense of an uncomfortable sympathy towards their own quarterback. But look, if Josh Heupel says it like this, I'm going to bat. And by the way, here's how we know this. Remember the Jeremy Banks Hendon Hooker fight? We're all on Hendon Hooker's side, but Dave, it sounds like a lot of those defensive players were on Jeremy Banks' side in that fight, weren't they, a few years ago?
The way that I was able to delineate who was on Banks' side and who wasn't was who did Pruitt recruit and who did.
And what is Pruitt, a defensive guy?
Yeah. Well, there were offensive guys that had Banks' side in that a little bit.
Okay. But you see that and you think, oh, Heupel, if you're uneducated, you would think Heupel siding with the star quarterback. He's a star quarterback. Well, this sends off a message. No, I'm not just going to side with the guy because he's my star quarterback. And that sends I think that sends a strong message to the rest of the team of wanting to play for Heupel in a certain way that maybe wasn't there before. Yes, I'm going to help my quarterback put up video game numbers. I'm going to design my offense around my quarterback doing that. But that doesn't mean I'm going to totally side with him on everything and create two sets of rules. And that resonates, I think, with players. Everybody
take 1 second, if you don't care, and click on that thumbs up button, the like button. And if you haven't subscribed at this point, we encourage you to do so. A lot of fantastic content coming your way in what is never an off season now with college football. So is college football a winner because they found themselves on the front page?
Well, I can tell you we're a winner on this. Guys, I'll just be straight up front. Our YouTube channel is a big winner on this, but I think college football is I think the NCAA is a loser. How about that? They look worse and worse, but well actually I take that back. No, the
NCAA is not even.
Actually, I take this back. The NCAA is a winner in this.
I think so too, because it forces them to get their stuff in order.
Well, the NCAA gets to go public and say, see, we told you so. Because people are now people yesterday were like, why isn't the NCAA doing this? NCAA is coming out and saying, what do you want us to do? You're taking us to court every time we're trying to regulate this. They can honestly say at this point, what do you want us to do, guys? Because you wanted this. They can say that to Tennessee. They can even say, Tennessee, don't complain. You sued and you fought for this to be able to happen last year.
Couple of comments from the message board. What did Nico do on the field to earn the title of star player? And then another comment that I want to address, if I can find that. Oh, man, I'm losing it. Anyway, it was essentially he had leadership issues. At the end of the day, just how big of a loss is this? Caleb, is it a huge loss, a loss, or is it easily overcome?
It's not easily overcome. It's a loss. Look, if this happened right before the opener against Syracuse, you're panicking. But like this, let's not pretend there's not a mental shock to a team. And Dave, you've covered teams, right? That they had a mental shock and that cost them a few games, didn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think there's a mental shock to this team right now, but it's the end of spring. They have an entire summer to recover, and then they have all of fall camp, right, to regroup and then move on in September. So I think that it's a mental shock. It's a loss, but it's not a huge loss, particularly with I talked about this yesterday, but we don't know where Tennessee's going yet at quarterback. So, will they stick with one of their two guys in the roster? Now, I've told you guys this before. It's not hard for a quarterback to learn this system. It's much harder for a receiver to pick up the system than it is a quarterback, funny enough. So you can pick a guy out in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I just don't know that he's going to be a guy that leads you into battle at the quarterback position with just 3 months to get ready.
Maybe he won't, but look, it's if not, like, you still got Merklinger and McIntyre, and people who watched last Saturday, McIntyre needs to put on weight, but Merklinger is definitely ready to run this offense, and McIntyre has all the potential in the world if he can just get about 15 pounds on him.
All right. At the end of the day, Daniel Webb says, we overhyped this guy. Let's move on. Was he overhyped?
I said,
and that's me and you both.
I wrote that he was created in a lab to run Josh Heupel's offense, but this is, even in Heupel's offense, which is a simple offense to learn for a quarterback, you can't underestimate intangibles. And I will say it felt like Nico didn't have certain intangibles last year, didn't it? And it just,
first year starter though, closed the season strong. That's a sign to me that
I'm not saying he couldn't have been great going into this year. I still think he could have been good and very, very good. And I'm not going to change my thoughts on that. Had Nico stayed at Tennessee, he could have been a great quarterback. But yes, I'll admit it.
Says Caleb way overhyped him.
Yeah, I'll admit it. I way overhyped him. I did.
I really don't think you did. And I may stand on that soapbox by myself. I've seen the talent. Listen. It's a parental issue. That's the issue. It's not his talent. None of that. He would have been very good. Now, he might not have been very good without skill position players that he had last year. And then last year, I thought the whole transition of getting to him was rough and the offensive tackle issue. So he may have never won a Heisman, as you said, may have never won a national championship. But talent-wise, I don't really have much question that guy's the real deal. I do have questions about his mental toughness. And somebody on the message board said, you got to shut your dad up. Well, maybe, but again, he's 19, and that's got to be hard to do. And I don't expect him to do that, but does it make me think that he might have another moment where he runs out of bounds on the final play, like against Arkansas, that he's mentally soft? Yes, it does make me.
Well, and also, let's part of mental toughness and intangibles. I'm going to just talk parenting for a minute. Dave, you know this. You're a parent. If the dad micromanages every part of your life, you can't develop any mental toughness. And I think that's a problem with Nico in this way. Look, we can talk about Archie Manning for a minute. Peyton Manning was very mentally tough. You know this, Dave. Archie Manning did not want to get involved with the offense at all at Tennessee. And David Cutcliffe tried to involve him. And Archie Manning's like, no, you coach him. I am staying out. The only thing Archie Manning did was use his NFL connections to try to make sure that Peyton and Eli did not go to bad NFL franchises. And that's what a dad's supposed to do, right? That's where a dad gets involved.
And he did it as classy as you could have done it. I don't think that dictating the NFL draft is ever classy, but he did it. He did a bad thing by most people's estimation, and he did it with some class.
Anybody who knows what happened to Archie Manning 11 years in New Orleans would be sympathetic to why he did not want Eli Manning to go to San Diego.
Yep. All right. Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Coming up, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Your comments as well. Give me 2 minutes off the Hook Sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Why Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East.
Cooper Mays here.
Oh,
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. Banksandjones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
What's the latest on our poll question, Caleb?
Losing Nico was huge, manageable, and 82% say manageable, 18% say huge.
Portions of the program brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. Daily updates there. Sports Treasure TN. The link is right below. So follow them immediately. Follow them now. It is time for the stat of the day. And that's brought to you by our good friends at Quality Tire Pros.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
Stat of the day, what do you got, Caleb? Does that have anything to do with Nico?
No, it actually has a shout out to Zakai Ziegler. Funny enough, Zakai Ziegler, we found out this was only just recently officially recorded, but he's with his assists this year, he became only the 4th player in SEC history to lead the SEC in assists for 3 consecutive years. One of only 4 players to do that.
So why is this just now that they were computing that? Is that what they were doing?
Yeah, it was being computed. So, but major shout out to him on that, honestly. Like, big shout out to Zakai Ziegler for I like giving shout outs. I know the season is over to Zakai Ziegler when I can, because I think he's just one of the most beloved Vols of all time, and he deserves every bit of love he gets.
I love, speaking of love, our message board, who is now doing the accounting computations on how much money Nico will lose if he plays in Los Angeles with a state income tax. There's a good bit of cash there that he'll lose. And he's not going to have, I don't believe that the schools he's listing, he's going to have those championship moments. I mean, what is playing at Ohio State in the college football playoff worth, Caleb? I mean, that's worth a couple of $100,000 to me if I'm a player to be a part of that and be on that stage.
Yeah, and it's also worth a round in the NFL draft, too, isn't it? At a minimum. I mean, we forget this. Like, college production still helps your draft stock, and I mean, this is what we're kind of. I'm kind of zoning in on. Like, you're throwing away potentially $10-20 million for what? an extra $1 or $2 million that like half of that's going to be taken away anyway in income tax.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the wisest move to me. Now, people are speculating that it could be Colorado. I haven't heard that he could end up at Colorado. I know that Colorado wants to spend some cash, could use a top flight quarterback. But what I'm hearing more is North Carolina, UCLA, and Tulane.
Yeah, I've heard that too. North Carolina is your classic Bill Belichick saying, I can make anybody work, and it doesn't matter what their character is because that's what I do. I'm Bill Belichick, and people will acquiesce to my demands. You know, the guy who said he could make Aaron Hernandez a not sociopath. So that's their Tulane would just be, I mean, gosh, that would look like such a misplay if he went to Tulane. I think the only way he goes to the only way he saves face is if he goes to UCLA.
And even they're not very good.
They're not very good, but he could at least maybe sell the idea that maybe he got some more money. Who knows?
Or that he wants to be closer to home.
Right.
To me, he has to go to North Carolina to save. I'm sorry, UCLA to save face. He goes to North Carolina or Tulane, he probably makes the same amount of money or less and plays at a lesser program. Just the whole thing's just dumb.
Come on, guys, it's game time.
4 downs. Can you count? 4 downs. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, 4 downs. Lady Vols add SMU transfer Nia Robertson. Then we'll get back to some Nico talk. What does she bring, Caleb Calhoun? First down is athleticism. What do you make of Nia Robertson?
I think this is a great pickup for Tennessee. Very athletic player, very good fit for Kim Caldwell's system. She was the Atlantic 10 6th Woman of the Year as a freshman and was an All-Atlantic 10 Conference 3rd-team selection as a sophomore. That was and so she gets that was when she was at George Washington. Then she transferred to SMU. Very, very solid scorer. She averages 18.5 points a game. This is a perfect fit for what Kim Caldwell likes to do. She's 5'7" and adds just another weapon for Kim Caldwell, who needs to be able to go 12 deep with her up-tempo controlled chaos system.
And second down will be 3-point shooting. What do you think of Robertson's 3-point shooting?
Robertson is a 31.2% 3-point shooter, was last year at SMU, 33.2% for her career. That doesn't seem great, but guys, remember this. Kim Caldwell's system probably ups your 3-point shooting percentage by about 5 percentage points because you get so many more looks so many more open looks based on the up-tempo system she runs. She's all about transition and creating as many looks as possible. And I think that Nia Robertson last year at LSU, not only was she 31% from 3, but she was also 76.6% from the free throw line, and she's 75.7% for her career from the free throw line. So she shoots well from the stripe, which is very important. I think that, again, next year at Tennessee, we're looking at her maybe getting up to about 36-37% from 3, and at that point, she becomes deadly.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe. Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Thank you, Coop. 3rd down is this. And when we talk about Robertson, she's got to play defense. And she's got to – I'm going to kind of combine these two, if you don't care, in defense and the ability to get up and down, because that's what Caldwell is going to demand out of her players. So I'm curious as you address that and her ability to play defense. When you look at Tennessee's basketball team, the Lady Vols from last year, how many players do you think they had that were good fits for Kim Caldwell's system? 1, 2, maybe?
Well, I think all the transfers were good fits. They were not the type of transfers that you didn't want all of them to be in the system. Does that make sense? Like they were good fits if they were a part of a puzzle piece, but they were all lacking a key puzzle piece, which was shooting. So I would say there were 6 or 7 players that were fits for Kim Caldwell's system. The problem was they were all similar players and there was no complementary pieces. Does that make sense? So, I mean, I think that's where this comes. Now, Nia Robinson is a great defensive player. She averaged a steal a game last year. Again, you could up that to 2 steals a game when you're playing in Kim Caldwell's system. But, she joins. I mean, they're loaded at guard with Kanaya Boyd, Talaysia Cooper, and Ruby Whitehorn, plus the Paulden twins and Kaya Wynn coming back from a torn Achilles. So this team is super, super deep at guard, but this is how Kim Caldwell is going to want to run her system. And look, she was second team All ACC. Her defense is a key part of what she does that adds to her athleticism. So she deserves a lot of credit for all of that, and she could be she deserves a lot of credit for how she handles that. So I think her defense is going to be very, very key. She averages, just for what it's worth, she's 5'7" and averages half a block a game. So she's that should give you an idea of how athletic she is.
Yeah, 5'7". My goodness. So you would think she would play the point?
I think she would be a player in the point. Again, I think last year at Tennessee, at SMU, she only averaged 1.5 assists per game. So she's more of a combo guard at 5'7", but I think that she's a little bit undersized for that. But again, she's one of those players that comes off the bench, generates a ton of activity, probably scores a lot in transition, is really, really, really fun to watch. Again, this adds more depth to the program. So I was a little bit shocked. I thought Kim Caldwell would go for a bit more size going for the transfers this offseason, but I think she's buying into the recruits that she has coming in. And I think she thinks she's going to be fine there. So Kim Caldwell wants to be in it. With any other system, Dave, I would say they're way too packed at guard. But I will say that with what Kim Caldwell runs, this is exactly what she needs. And by the way, we missed this yesterday. She committed on Sunday. I just wasn't able to get to it yesterday because of obviously other breaking news.
Did they what are expectations for Kim Caldwell in year number 2? Because she did nothing but raise them with her team's play last year.
I mean, look, I think Tennessee is going to be a Final Four caliber team once the NCAA tournament hits in. I really do. I know that's crazy to think, but I think that Tennessee is going to have Final Four talent. There are going to be some bumps in the road. It's going to be like, think about it this way. You know those teams, Dave, in basketball that they struggle with, they're a roller coaster during the season because they're young, and then they're really good in March because they figured it out. And I think that's going to be this team. It's going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride for this team during the middle of the season. And then when March comes, I think they're going to be much, much better at that point. So everybody don't panic when you're going to see them drop some games in January next year that they shouldn't drop. It should remind you of Bruce Pearl's first Tennessee team was better in the regular season than his second Tennessee team, but his second Tennessee team was better in March because they really started to gel.
I think that'll be the case with Caldwell as well. I find it interesting that both have the same take there. I'll also say this: from 2000 to 2005, I did cover the Lady Vols, and basically they had to have a superstar to win a championship, right? It was either Gino gets a superstar or Tennessee gets a superstar.
Yeah, and Pat Summitt did not like the way that was going, but she realized it was, so that's why she went all out for Candace Parker.
Yeah, and the reason is there weren't that many elite women's basketball players. There was usually one in a class that was the gym, and then there was 8 or 9 others that were really good players. Obviously, when you had the Meeks all in one class, I mean, that you had 3 special players altogether. But that is really not the case anymore this year. I don't know that Tennessee needs a Shamiqua Holdsclaw, Candace Parker anymore to win in this system. As a matter of fact, I don't know that you want a superstar. You're not going to turn down the female Michael Jordan. Don't get me wrong. But you're also more of a system coach than you are going to sell out in recruiting. And I don't mean Pat sold out in terms of giving people money. I mean, she just went extra hard at it. I'm going to sell out in recruiting and have a special player or a special roster. I just don't think she's that type of coach, but she's recruiting extremely well.
She is. And she's recruiting to her system, which is a big deal, which is a big help too. So that's a big standout. And Nia Robertson the question is, here's the hard part, Dave, with these guards. She's getting all these high volume backcourt players, players that took a lot of shots, had a high usage rate, things like that. Can they be willing to accept more of a role in Kim Caldwell's system rather than being high volume? I mean, it is kind of like, it's like, could Michael Jordan ever accept going to a team where he wasn't the leading, he didn't take all the shots, the majority of shots? I mean, I know he developed that way playing for Dean Smith for 3 years, but you listen to Michael Jordan, he sits there and says he thinks Dean Smith was the only person who could ever stop him because he didn't feel like he took enough shots or had enough volume.
A little bit of Lady Vols brought to you by our good friends at, of course, it would be Ted Russell, Lincoln.net, TedRussellFord.net. The selection is absolutely unparalleled at East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. You are going to be blown away by the buying process. It's super easy, and you're going to appreciate the fact that they respect your time and they get you out the door with the vehicle you want. None of the cars on the lots right now are affected by tariffs, so don't even worry about that. You'll get the best price that you could possibly get thanks to East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, TedRussellFord.net, TedRussellLincoln.net, and they take pride in making sure that you drive off that lot very happy with your purchase, and I certainly did as well. Coming up, we will...
Wait, no fourth down?
Oh, did I forget fourth down?
Wow, you're the reverse Colorado game.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
Sorry, will she start?
No, she's not going to start, but she's going to be a 6-man off the bench. That's my call for this game. I'm going to say that she will be I think the Paulden twins are going to. I think Maya Paulden, the high-profile 5-star guard, is going to be the starting point guard for Tennessee, right as a true freshman. I think Kim Caldwell is going to go all in with her true freshman recruits, and then Nia Robertson is going to be that veteran off the bench to provide a scoring punch and an athletic punch, which a few of those players are in the Lady Vols.
At what point do the twins get a double mint deal? The gum?
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
I mean, that seems like a no-brainer.
It does, actually.
They're
it kind of does.
Slightly above average, or if one's a star and one's average, you've got to do that. That's easy.
You do.
Come on.
Oh, my gosh. It's Tennessee. Do like double-barrel shotguns.
Or orange gum. You could do that as well. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. We'll visit with T. Scott Jones a little bit later in the program as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, TedRussellFord.net, TedRussellLincoln.net, Off Thug Sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln, Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute.
frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
William says, is this live? No one talks to others. Sorry, William. We had a lot going on. I'll talk to you. How are you, William? We certainly appreciate you being a part of the program. Want to get your thoughts on Nico Iamaleava and that saga that unfolded. It's still stunning to me how quickly it happened. And it was basically 24 hours, and that thing was done adios cazoose.
It was. I mean, it was Thursday night, the report comes. Friday, he skips practice. And Saturday, he is gone. So, yeah, it was. I mean, we're talking, it was less than 36 hours from when the Beaten Acres report came out that Nico Iamaleava was in the transfer portal.
By the way, how telling is it that the father, Nick Iamaleava, he hasn't said a thing on Twitter since he called Nakos the B word?
That's a really good point.
I mean, what's he doing? Is he taking a break from social media? Because he probably should have done that beforehand.
I'll say this. I wonder if there's tension in the Iamaleava household. Because look, I'll just say this up front. We know this. Nico Iamaleava loved Tennessee himself, and he loved Josh Heupel.
I guarantee that Nico's not happy.
Yeah, he is not happy. So there is tension in the Iamaleava house. I'll say that.
Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. That's cityheatandair.com. Here we go.
And hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. cityheatandair.com on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, can we all agree that Nico's decision was not a good one, and he's probably going to end up at a lesser school with about the same amount of money? But we're going to tweak this just a little bit. We're going to take a look at all the transfer portal quarterbacks that have moved on, or the impact ones anyway.
In the SEC.
In the SEC. And we'll ask you this. Hot will be they'll have an impact in the league. Is that this year or throughout their careers?
No, it's either their departure from the league or their departure to the league impacts the outcome of the league, of the league. How about that? Impacts the league.
Okay. So in other words, Nico leaving would impact the league. Now, let me make sure I've got this right. I don't think that Tennessee was going to win an SEC championship. So if I go from 10 to 8 wins or 9 to 7, is that affecting the league? I mean, you're talking about more than a game or two, right?
It's still affecting the league because, one, it could affect who else plays for the SEC championship, and it could affect who goes to the college football playoff.
Okay.
So
that's hot.
All right. Nico, I believe, will affect the league. I think Tennessee loses a game or two without him that they would have won. I'm not ready to say Merklinger's the guy. I'm not ready to say McIntyre's the guy. I have questions about both. And no, I think this affects the league. There's no question about it.
Yes, I totally agree. I think Nico going affects the league in a big way. Look, I get the way people are thinking with I get why people think Tennessee could be better off, but Dave, everybody thinks their team is better off with the player that left them. And I'm just going to say, I don't think this is not where Tennessee wants to be. I think Tennessee could be in better shape for 2026 given the situation, but they're not in better shape for 2025. It affects the league. They lose. They go from 9-3 or 10-2 to 8-4 or 9-3.
Yep. Carson Beck, Georgia to Miami. I think it has a big effect because it's my understanding that the quarterback situation in Athens is not set at all. It could take them from an 11 or 12 win team to a 9 or 10 win team. And they're probably going to be predicted to win the SEC championship. So yes, that's a huge monstrous effect.
All right. You ready for my hot take?
Yes.
I'm cold on this. And here's why. I actually thought Carson Beck leaving could help the culture of Georgia. And then they just kept getting traffic arrests in the offseason. So I realized that, nope, they still have a culture problem down there. And so I think they still have issues. And I think Carson Beck going from Georgia to Miami doesn't change Georgia's situation at all because they're so loaded everywhere else.
Connor Wegman goes from Texas A&M to Houston. I'm going to say no. This doesn't have a huge effect.
No effect whatsoever.
Okay. Jackson Arnold, Oklahoma to Auburn.
I'm going to say yes. Jackson Arnold got benched last year midway through the season with Oklahoma, but then Oklahoma fired Seth Littrell. They threw their offensive scheme under the bus. I think Jackson Arnold was not in the right situation when it came to coaching. Y'all know how I feel about Hugh Freeze, the person, but Hugh Freeze, the offensive coach, I still hold in high regard, even though he struggled last year.
More quarterbacks, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. That's hot.
Bo Prabula from Penn State to Missouri. Is Missouri still in the SEC? Can we do something about that?
Is Missouri still in the SEC? Is that your question? Yes, they are. They are, and they actually were in the race to go to the college football playoff last year. I think that, look, Missouri's added 2 quarterbacks in the all season, but Bo Prabula coming out of Penn State was the big one. I think he will have an impact. Look, at some point, Dave, even though he takes advantage of the easiest SEC schedule in a overloaded mega conference with imbalanced schedules, Eli Drinkwitz has gone 11-2 and 10-3 the last 2 years. At some point, we kind of have to respect his offensive acumen with certain types of quarterbacks. And so I think Bo Prabula is going to impact the SEC in that regard.
All right. Walker White, Auburn to Baylor.
No impact whatsoever.
Air Nolan, Ohio State to South Carolina. So you're cold on that. You cold on this one?
Yes, Lenora Sellers is going to be the guy starting at South Carolina. By the way, reportedly, I understand, and you can tell me, Dave, is one of the reasons Nico's team renegotiated was they saw what Lenora Sellers was getting at South Carolina. Spoiler alert, Nico, you weren't half as good as Lenora Sellers was last year.
Ouch. Michael Van Buren Jr., the third Esquire, LSU to Mississippi State. He was a heck of a president. How good of a quarterback will Van Buren be for Mississippi State?
I mean, people debate if he was a heck of a president. He did lose re-election. Yeah. Well, he was dealt with the aftermath of Andrew Jackson getting rid of the National Bank, which crashed the economy in 1837. So, yeah. Anyways, I got it mixed up. Sorry. It was Mississippi State to LSU. I apologize for that. Still not going to have an impact because there's old Garrett Nussmeier around there, and he is just too good of a player.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Portions of the program brought to you by Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNewbertCollision.com. JoeNewbertCollision.com. Where are you hoping that Nico goes? Do you have a preference?
I'm going to say this, and I get where Tennessee fans are with their feelings. I hope he goes somewhere that's best for him. I don't like that this happened to him because, again, I don't put this on him. And I don't think anybody should wish ill will towards him because he's being strung along, because he's got I don't think people should wish ill will towards him just because his dad is stringing him along. I think we should all wish the best for this kid. And I think the best for him would probably be USC, but it doesn't look like he's going there. Now,
my personal rooting interest is North Carolina. I want to see the Bill Belichick thing play out, and there's always a chance that Tennessee could play North Carolina in one of those early season neutral site bowl games or an actual bowl game. To face Nico in a bowl game with all the hype leading up to it would be pretty fantastic.
That would actually be so great. I just want to see that, actually. I hope he goes somewhere that plays Tennessee in the college football playoff. That's what I want to see. Now, Dave, how about this? What transfer shook up the SEC more, Carson Beck's or Nico Iamaleava's? Like, from what was a bigger earthquake?
I would have to say Carson Beck because he was on a championship team.
I have to say Nico. Carson Beck's close with the whole Lambeau flashing and everything like that. But the only reason I say Nico is because Tennessee didn't just openly become. Nico wasn't just the first quarterback to like openly get a bunch of money to go to a school and make news for it. Tennessee literally declared open war on the NCAA on behalf of Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah,
and I mean, I can't get over that. But Carson Beck, I think most of us felt. I know people think Carson Beck getting hurt cost Georgia in the playoff, and maybe it did. But don't you feel like with an all season? And you tell me if I'm crazy on this, Dave. Don't you feel like Georgia, even now with Kirby Smart, is at a level where they can get a plug and play quarterback at any time, and they're going to be fine?
Yeah, probably can. I mean, they don't ask their quarterback to do nearly as much. But it is the times like Stetson Bennett when he did more that I thought Georgia was all that more impressive.
No, that is very true. I agree. And so, sometimes there's quarterbacks that need to just be able to manage the game properly. You know this. That's happened plenty of times in Tennessee's history. I think that sometimes quarterbacks that just manage the game properly end up getting more out of their talent than otherwise. I think T. Martin not being as intense as Peyton Manning was and being a little more managed the game actually brought out more. It brought out better production from the other players around him than Peyton Manning did.
Okay, this does not surprise me. A bit of breaking news, as it appears North Carolina has dropped out of the Nico chase because they've been linked to South Alabama quarterback. So, wow. North Carolina would have been, that type of school would have been kind of like the base of the lowest he could go. But he's going to fall lower than that, which means probably Tulane.
Maybe still UCLA, but that might be low. I mean, UCLA, remember, went 5-7 last year, and they have Deshaun Foster as their head coach, who literally last year at Big Ten Media Day was, well, hey guys, I'm Deshaun Foster, and I don't know what to say. Also, they have Joey Aguilar.
I'm a little like Butthead from Beavis and Butthead. Butthead.
Yeah, and they also got Joey Aguilar out of Appalachian State, so they're already set at quarterback. Look, this is kind of crazy what you're saying. Oh, and also their offensive coordinator is is the son of Sal Sinceri at UCLA. So
Right. My favorite review ever of a hire. Well, he's not that bright and he's not good with people, but other than that, he's a great coach. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. That's RickTerryJewelry.com. Another note that's brought up on our message board that you can confirm if you want to, but I trust Elias there. UCLA was 107 in sacks allowed last year in the country. I mean, I just don't, unless this Nick guy is way more smooth than I think, I do not see this working out well for Nico. I just don't. I don't see how it happens.
No, I don't see how it happens either. I mean, and this is why we think Tennessee, one of the reasons Tennessee won this is Nico has put himself in a really, really tough position. By the way, given what we're seeing, Dave, because Tulane is reportedly out of the running too to some people.
Oh.
It sounds like Nico's team leaked these 3 schools without actually talking to these 3 schools. And it's like, wow, these are the 3 best schools you could leak. If you're going to leak something from a news perspective, wouldn't you go a little bit higher? Wouldn't you leak like, oh, he's talking to Ohio State or something like that?
Yeah. And listen, guys, this is just not the time to do it. Now, this is why Josh Heupel, I thought, handled this well, because he knew that Nico didn't have any leverage. He knew that the spring transfer portal probably means you're going to sit the bench early. And depending on where he goes, that's going to be the case. So this didn't just start on Thursday. I want to be clear. These negotiations have been going on for a long time, and they've become tiresome. And Nico thought he had leverage with the orange and white game, which is just a silly event to begin with. And he had no leverage. He didn't have leverage like he had before Ohio State. He had zero leverage because Josh Heupel, and I'm sure Josh Heupel wasn't able to talk to Nico, which is troublesome in its own right. But I'm sure he told Joey Halsey, be sure and pass on that quarterbacks that leave in the transfer portal usually don't play a lot. Most players don't play a lot.
Particularly the spring portal, yeah. I mean, like, this is kind of crazy that this has all happened. But let's say this. Tennessee, who is more likely to have a plan? Tennessee or Nico out of this?
Well, I think Tennessee has a plan. I think that their plan is threefold. I think, one, their plan is to make sure they've got one quarterback ready, whether that's Merklinger or McIntyre. 2, they want to bring in another quarterback in the spring transfer portal, even though it's probably just a body for depth. And 3, they need to spread out the Nico bonus money.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Everybody, because of this, this sudden boost in NIL funds because you don't have to pay this guy $2.2 million. You should spread that out to the rest of your team. That'd be a way to buy some goodwill for sure.
That's very true. Before we wrap this up, I gotta I have the school Nico should go to. I'm gonna share this meme. This is a great one, Dave. Check this out right here. Let's do it.
Oh man.
Guys, it is time. And for those of you who are just listening, it is a picture of one of the greatest, brightest men to ever lead Tennessee. And it says, "Hey, Nico, I can make you a champion of life." And you guys know who I'm talking about. Butch Jones and Arkansas State, baby. Nico to Arkansas State.
Okay. I'm going to put as our poll question, I'd like Nico to go, there we go, play for Butch. Now, we know it's not going to happen, UNC Belichick. And then give me another option.
UCLA.
Yeah, but that one doesn't have any.
That one's, yeah, okay. So Butch Jones, UNC. Oh man, we're being really mean to a kid who's like not actually
Vandy.
But Vandy. Okay, Vandy. There we go, Vandy.
Okay. All right, there we go. So that's our poll question. Our last poll question. Yes, Tavante is a champion for life. You want to play Nico again? No. Over it? Yes. Revenge. I'm all about the revenge and the content. What about you?
I'm more on the over it. I don't think, and if I'm a Tennessee fan, I think most Tennessee fans understand this, and that's why they're saying, and I saw they were leading on the over it. I think there's a little bit of, I think there's a lot of sympathy for the kid. Put it that way.
Still like to see him play Tennessee. I would just enjoy that to no end. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Coming up, is Joey Halsey on the hot seat? What role did he play with the Nico thing? Because I'm not real happy about the fact that he was the last line of communication and that Josh Heupel wasn't more involved in that. Something afoot? I don't know. We'll discuss with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Yeah, I think some of this is overblown to some extent coaches saying that you're not going to take a player because he had an NIL issue at Tennessee. I don't think that's really the case for the most part, but I do think this got so ugly and could affect a team's chemistry so bad. I do think if you have a competent quarterback situation, you're not going to go out and sign Nico in hopes of elevating it to an elite quarterback. I think that,
the only way you might do that is if you're trying to troll Tennessee. Like, let's be honest, Dave. What are there's a 50-50 chance Lane Kiffin would do this just to make a headline.
Elias brings up a good point. The discussion is going to get very interesting if Nico is still in the portal on Monday. Well, I feel really bad for him if he's out there hanging out. All I know to do is tell Paul.
Someone should be like, Tennessee will take him back for $1 million.
Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better. Bank on it. Joey Halzle will be fired after this season. Caleb?
No, but I think he's in some trouble. The only reason I don't think after this season, I think the whole offensive staff has bought themselves some goodwill, not goodwill, but some time, because everybody's going to be understanding of what happened with Nico. But I think if he is fired, it would be, I don't think Josh Heupel and company are happy with Joey Halzle. I think, and I'll let you actually give the details of what you think, but for those who don't know, Nico told Joey Halzle Friday night that he was entering the portal. He clearly had contact with Joey Halzle and nobody else on Tennessee staff for 24 hours. The question is how much and how involved was Joey Halzle? And I think that I don't think Halzle is going to be fired after this year, because I don't think Josh Heupel is going to want I don't think he's going to want the negative press of doing that when he could maybe sell a future with whoever he goes at quarterback or something like that. But I think Joey Halzle is going to be on the hot seat.
I don't think he'll be fired either, but I've got a real issue. I don't know if it's with Halzle or if it's with Heupel, the way this was handled. This is not what an assistant coach should be doing. This is what the head coach should be doing. Joey Halzle was overplaying with Nico was overplaying with Joe Halsey's kids, I was told, and everything's hunky-dory. And then at the end of the meeting, after spending all day with him, said, I'm gone. How old's Joey Halzle again? 34, 32, somewhere in there. I mean, I don't want to be an ageist, but he has never been
in 30. He's 39.
39. Okay. But inexperienced, you'll give me that.
Yes.
I will go ahead and go out on a limb and say that he has not been in this type of situation before. And it was all on Joey Halzle. This is an unusual situation. I'm not sure you use it against him, but it is a factor if I'm considering making a change, because you let Nico get away to some extent. I don't want to blame it on one guy. I think it's the dad's fault. But if it comes down to where I got to make a tough decision, this ain't helping him. Now, on the message board, they agree with you. Halzle says he bought himself some more time with the quarterback debacle. I definitely think he bought himself this year and perhaps 2026, but I didn't really think with a talent like Nico that he would need to play that card.
No, I didn't either. And let's tell the story of Joey Halzle, guys. Let's put this out there. There were some concerns when he was hired at Tennessee, or when he was promoted at Tennessee, because let me give you Joey Halzle's backstory real quick. He graduates from Oklahoma in 2008. From 2009 to 2011, quality control coach. 2012 to 2014, graduate assistant. 2015, offensive assistant at Utah State. 2016, offensive assistant at Missouri. 2017 to 2018, leaves college football altogether, works in the private sector, comes back in 2019, offensive assistant. So, Dave, post-playing career, we're looking at 7 straight seasons. He was an off-field assistant and never got promoted to an on-field role. Spends 2 years outside of football, comes back, still doesn't get an on-field role, and is finally promoted to quarterbacks coach in 2020, and then is promoted to offensive coordinator in 2023. Look, I'm just going to be honest with you. We talked about this before. It was a red flag when Brent Venables was a defensive coordinator for so long and never got a legitimate offer as head coach. It spoke to John Chavis that he was a defensive coordinator for so long at Tennessee and had so much success and never got an offer to be a head coach. It speaks volumes when you are an off-field assistant coach for nearly a decade, and you never, for the same person, by the way, for the same person in Josh Heupel, and you never get offered an on-field role, that says something about, at the very least, maybe Josh Heupel never thought he was mature enough for it, right?
Yeah, I think there's another reason that Halsey is not going to be in the hot seat. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, Life Made Better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank.
I believe that Josh Heupel is going to be as loyal to his coaches, the guys that he brings up, like Kelsey Pope, Halsley, Ablin. I think he's going to be loyal to those guys to a fault because he brought them up. He wants everything in-house. So he doesn't want to admit he's wrong, but keeping everything in-house, there's an argument to be made for that. I don't hate that, Caleb. And I think he's overly concerned about stuff getting out, but I think that concern, arguably paranoia, will cause him to stick with the coaches the same way that he gave the coaches their break when nobody thought they were going to receive that type of break, specifically Halsley.
It's also something that could hold Josh Heupel back in the new era of college football. Guys, things aren't secret anymore. Systems aren't secret anymore. Styles aren't secret anymore. Okay, it's there. College football is almost going the way of the NFL with just a wider variety of coaching styles, because you have Josh Heupel has assistants scattered all across the country. And truth be told, I don't know how he expects to keep this thing quiet for long. I mean, people are already look. Last year, people had not just adjusted to Josh Heupel's system; they had adjusted not just to Josh Heupel. I mean, they adjusted to every coach that runs the system. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the veer and shoot offense, the Art Briles system, it was struggling everywhere in college football last year. Why is it struggling everywhere? Because everybody's seeing it now. So defensive coaches are adjusting to it. So this paranoia makes no sense, because you're only as good as your ability to adjust your own offense to the defense's adjustments. And Dave, what you're suggesting to me, see, I don't know if this is, I know you're not saying this because we know Josh Heupel can adjust. He went 12 personnel last year, but it does give off a vibe of Josh Heupel had a system. It was ahead of the curve. And now that people are catching up, he's having a harder time staying ahead.
Well, going 12 personnel was like, changing jobs. To me, changing your philosophy of I'm a paranoid person is like changing lives. I mean, that's a much bigger commitment. That's who he is as a person. It comes from Oklahoma. It comes from having the carpet pulled out from under him. That's who he is as a person. So that to me is a greater challenge to overcome for Tennessee's fans that are going to get frustrated by these coaches. And I've been through this before. Larry Slade and Pat Washington were always the ones, the secondary coach and receivers coach. They were always hated on. So even when Tennessee would win 9 or 10 games, as they usually did under Fulmer, it would always be like, oh, how much better it could have been without those guys. And I think that's gonna crop up. It already has on our message board. How many people have already said, one person called Halsley an idiot. Other people don't like Halsley. I think it's oversimplification to say that just because there was a coordinator change after 2022, that's why Tennessee struggled. I think there are more reasons than that, but it certainly sticks out. And that's,
the timing is somewhat unfair. Is somewhat unfortunate, right? Because like I said, all right, let's just talk about last year. Alex Golesh wasn't great offensively at USF last year. Lincoln Riley struggled at USC last year. Jeff Lebby did not have a first-year impact at Mississippi State. Everywhere you looked, everybody that was running this offense was struggling last year to a degree that you felt that maybe defenses have it's so widespread now that defenses have just figured it out. Now, the question with Joey Halsley is how creative is he able to be? Look, I feel like we're not giving Heupel enough credit for the 12 personnel last year because, Dave, one of the things we did notice is...
Well, I gave him a ton of credit now.
No. You gave him a ton of credit, but not just the 12 personnel, his willingness to run the ball. I think you and I both thought Josh Heupel would get impatient and try to force things with Nico, right? Yep. And he basically said, no, you stick with the 3-3-5, we'll keep it on the ground the whole game. And they did that. And the only reason they got blown up by Ohio State was, one, they didn't have the corners. I think Tim Banks did not dial up enough blitz packages that he should have dialed up against Ohio State. And look, Tennessee just didn't have the horses on offense, particularly with Dylan Sampson going out. And I think that's what happened. And Ohio State was playing on a mission. Now, I'm not as concerned looking back about the offense as I am, Dave. How willing is Tim Banks to adjust on the fly game to game defensively? Now, we agree Tim Banks is a better coordinator than Joey Halzle, but doesn't it stand out to you that against Georgia and Ohio State, he tried to stick with what he had been doing all year and didn't even bother to dial up some complex blitz packages, which we know he can do?
I don't put that as much on the defense. I just think that there were a lot of issues. I think that goes into game planning, and you don't just dial up a blitz that you ran in October. So I might differ with you there a little bit. I want to get back to the Halzle relationship with Nico, because as a coach, there's a reason you're called a coach and not a boss. You're supposed to coach kids through this sort of thing, be it the inability to hit a deep slant or be it the dad who's trying to get you to leave. And by all indications, Halsey failed. But I wonder if Josh Heupel takes away some of the responsibility that he had in managing the players. If he views that then as a demotion, I just think this thing could go south in a couple of different ways.
I think Halsey, my question to you, though, is how much leeway was Halsey given to begin with? I mean, I think you and I both agree Jeff Lebby and Alex Golesh had a lot more freedom as offensive coordinators than Halsey did. And I think that really kind of stood out. The big thing with the big thing with Golesh is Tennessee always seemed to have an impact on their first drive. They scripted a drive. Did Tennessee look like they ever scripted their first drive last year?
No.
And
I think they had to find out how their offensive tackles were going to be playing. This guy's not playing, but he's playing to win. T. Scott Jones joins us now with Banks and Jones. T. Scott, how are you, sir?
Man, I'll tell you what, I'm doing fantastic, cooking with gas, so to speak. So not bad for a poor old country lawyer.
There you go. Well, I wanted to have you on to talk about this Nico situation. In retrospect, contracts or something like that, what might have been doable to avoid all this?
You know, I think in the brave new world of NIL, obviously we're going to see almost like pro-like contracts. I mean, these young men, young women getting paid enormous sums of money, there's going to be an expectation of performance and honoring, contract obligations. These NIL deals, you look at it, they're expected to appear for autograph sessions, participate in merchandising, things of that nature is part of the reason that they're receiving that recompense and part of the argument. So I think you're going to see really the contract language tightened up, and that if you're going to get paid, adult pay, we're going to expect adult work.
T. Scott Jones, how difficult is it going to be though and I think everybody's giving Tennessee credit, rightfully so, for being very hard on this is what you agreed for and we're not going to budge. But what happens on the recruiting trail when a bunch of other schools say, you know what, we'll let you renegotiate pay and we won't make our contracts binding? Isn't the market going to favor schools that are more reckless with their contracts? Well,
I mean, I think it's going to be fluid, and to a certain extent, obviously the NCAA, we talked about that on one of the prior shows, made some errors in judgment with regards to the way that they addressed part of this whole NIL situation. But at some point in time, there's got to be somebody besides just a free market that governs this. There's got to be some sort of limitation. I mean, we talk about like contracts and things of this nature. What Nico was talking about was way more than a lot of pro athletes made in their entire career. So, I mean, where's the ceiling on it? So I don't know. One of the things that I thought, and I know we can't necessarily do this because they're, to quote my cousin Vinny, they're youths, but with them being youth, the reality of it is they are above the age of majority and capable of contracting. And I think about, the Oakland A's and Moneyball. And so, if we're going to pay you for performance, I think we dock you for lack thereof. So, I mean, to a certain extent, your passer rating falls below this. Hey, you know what? That check doesn't come. I mean, or it comes and there's a base level and then it either goes up or down over there. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of innovative swings with regards to how these contracts are structured. I mean, it's the only thing that makes sense to me.
T. Scott Jones, Banks and Jones, banksandjones.com. When I look at this situation too, I wonder if, I know this sounds crazy, but I've covered a lot of players' parents. If there needs to be verbiage in there that my main contact is with you and not your parents or your uncle or your crazy Aunt Susie or whatever.
You know, I think that to the extent that you can do that, that'd be great. But I think you're going to see kids balk up on the limitation, especially at the age these kids are, independence. And, you know, it's kind of sad. I mean, when you look at the numbers, Nico's dad, I mean, maybe he comes out, maybe he doesn't. I mean, $46,000 a week is pretty stout pay for a young man. I mean, I know that I would do my best to soldier through. I might have to cut back and, you know, budget a little bit, but, you know, 46 grand a week's pretty stout money. And, you know, I don't say this disrespectful of Nico. We've all talked about it. You know, I think he was rated as the 9th quarterback. I mean, you know, it wasn't like he was the stud of the league. I mean, he was Midland in the middle of the league. And then when you saw his performance against Arkansas and against Ohio State, you know, bad mental decisions. And I will not tell you who the very esteemed pro athlete and UT alum is that said it to me and talked about one of our other fine quarterbacks said, not only did he have it here, but he had it here, right? And if you don't have your heart and you're not all Vol and you're not going to give your all for the Vols, I don't know. I mean, it just, that really, really bothers me.
T. Scott Jones, you talked a little bit about there's going to have to be some sort of governing body with this to get these contracts sorted out. But every time the NCAA tries to do something, they lose in court right now because of antitrust law. So how can something be done to create a governing body with these contracts like you talk about that doesn't just straight up violate antitrust laws?
I think you're going to have the university come together, all of the various Division I schools, so to speak, come together and as a conglomerate, you know, decide, you know, that it's going to be a situation where you have salary caps. I mean, you know, what happened with the NFL? What happened with Major League Baseball? I mean, how long do you think it's going to be, gentlemen? I will predict if that doesn't happen, somebody will be making $10 million a year within 5 years.
I wouldn't be surprised at that either. And I think there needs to be a fundamental shift from NIL. We just need to forget about that acronym because you brought it up and it made me think of it. Nico didn't show up to anything, basically. And he wasn't autographing stuff. He wasn't out there. As a matter of fact, one representative said, I can get you anybody but Nico. And that proved to be the case. It just needs to be pay for play. They just need to be employees. We're kind of got a sham going here a little bit.
Well, it's just disrespect for the university, the program, and everything else. And, you know, I wish the young man all the luck in the world, and I'm sure somebody is going to take a chance on that young man. But, you know, it's the old song by Great White, right? Once bitten, twice shy. So, I mean, if you know a snake bites, are you really going to jump in the water with him? I mean, you know, somebody will, but then again, you know, how much loyalty is he going to have out of his linemen, right? I mean, is that blind side going to be protected, or is he going to have one of those lookout blocks, you know, where the man goes down and says, look out? I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, it is interesting as what's going on.
No question. East Tennessee's best law firm. Tell us more about Banks and Jones and what you do that separates you guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're 34 strong now here at my offices. We're down here on Middlebrook. We've got a plethora, big word there, of trial lawyers. We go to court. We try our lawsuits. We make on average 41 court appearances a week, and we do what it takes to play to win.
Have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, gentlemen. Take care. Bye-bye. I'm a leaving.
I'm a leaving. Waiting for that.
Well played.
That's pretty good. All right, T-Scott, thank you. How great was that? I'm a leaving. I'm still in that officially.
Iamaleava. See, the catch, Dave, with all that, and the catch with all of this, though, is that, again, yes, there's salary caps in the NFL, but I mean, there's no limit on what players can make endorsement-wise with the NFL. And so a lot of this NIL money is endorsement deals. Who's to come in and say you can't make money off endorsements? I mean, that's just, unfortunately, that's how it is. I don't know any way you put guardrails on that.
Well, the endorsement dollars don't need to come directly from advertisers. In other words, let's take Cooper Mays, for instance. Okay, Cooper Mays got whatever he got from the University of Tennessee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know I have an idea how much that is, but I'm not sure, so I'm not going to share it. But then I went to him separately about doing the ball report brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. And that's completely separate. It's not going through the university. Right now, you've got advertising money going through the university. You have donor money going through the university. Why not? And I don't think Tennessee needs Spire anymore. I would trade Spire right now for a strong general manager in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think it was the idea to streamline endorsements, and the streamline has kind of backfired. But I just feel like, saying all this up front, it's like there's no way you could, because like you could do a salary cap for what schools can pay players. Fine, players unionize. There's no cap on advertising revenue. I mean, there's no way you can tell a player that they can't go do an endorsement with a car company and make a bunch of money.
That would be illegal.
Yes, exactly.
Which Tennessee proved in court to make sure that Nico was eligible.
Exactly.
How bizarre. This day in Tennessee sports history. Caleb, what do you got?
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb, what do you got?
On this day, speaking of people leaving Tennessee, 11 years ago, right on the heels of a Sweet 16 run, Conzo Martin bolted Tennessee for Cal late in April. Shocked everybody when it happened because he had just renegotiated a deal with Tennessee, and people were wondering, like, what are we going to do, because it was so late in the process of him leaving. But yeah, it was 11 years ago today, after a Cinderella Sweet 16 run, Conzo Martin left the Vols for Cal.
Who was the coach before him?
Bruce Pearl.
And before him?
Buzz Peterson.
And before him?
Jerry Green.
Wow. I just wanted to work that in. It took a while, but I got there.
Hey.
Yes.
But nothing was like Buzzball. I just remember that branding, Buzzball.
Yeah, that didn't work out real well. The lane train. So we might tackle this tomorrow, but I'm curious, who do Tennessee fans dislike the most, do you think? Lane Kiffin or Nico Iamaleava?
Oh, Lane Kiffin. It's Lane. People feel bad for Nico.
I don't know. This one's fresh, though.
It is fresh. But here's what the real lesson is. Tennessee needs to not... Here's the jinx. Tennessee needs to stop giving their quarterbacks the number 8.
Yeah, probably. By the way, our poll question, can you read that and give us the updates from the latest one? I just put a new one up.
Who do you dislike the most? Lane, Nico, Nico's dad.
I think Nico's dad's winning that in a runaway. Again, TedRussellFord.net, TedRussellLincoln.net. You will be so taken care of by a fantastic crew of employees there that want to make sure, whether you're at the Parkside Drive location or Kingston Pike, you had the incredible selection that only East Tennessee's largest volume dealer can provide. That's what Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, they do every single day. You drive off that lot and you're happy with your vehicle. No question about it. All right. Colorado making some news, retiring jerseys. It's a little strange. He's been there for 3 years and Deion's retiring jerseys. Again, we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studios.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Save up to $4,350 on a new Ford F-150 XLT, or get into a new Ford Ranger XLT with no payments for 90 days. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months. and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at
Oops. Welcome back. Caleb, are you ready? I think Caleb's ready. Let's go, Caleb, because I hit the wrong button.
Guy with a lot of jobs, but this one is the most important.
This is not government work. As such, I treat it with care and attention.
Until someone else calls. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, Caleb. We'll close this out with talk about Colorado. Deion Sanders saying he won't be in the Nico sweepstakes, or even if it is a sweepstakes, maybe like a local bingo game at your local Rotary Club. But it is, it's not something he wants to be involved in, but he does want pub, so he made sure and got his voice heard yesterday. But he did it in another way as well, which I find pretty interesting.
Yes, Deion Sanders and Colorado are going to retire Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders jerseys this Saturday as part of spring game festivities.
Okay, do we know if they're retiring the jerseys or the jersey numbers?
The jersey numbers. The jersey numbers.
Okay. That means they cannot be used.
Yes, they cannot be used. Now, just so we remember, I want to point this out. Colorado went, if I can pull up the record, they went 9-4 last year. Wasn't that the record that they went? I believe it was. Yeah, I think they went 9-4 and lost in the Alamo Bowl. This is a program, Dave, that back in the Bill McCartney days and the Gary Barnett days went 11-1 in 1989, won the Big Eight, finished fourth. 11-1 in 1990, won the Big Eight, and shared the national title. Went 11-1 in 1994 with Cordell Stewart and finished ranked number 3. Went 11-2 and won the Big 12 in 2001 under Gary Barnett. Went 10-3 in 2001, finished ranked number 9. And so this isn't like this is a program without a decent amount of history. And last year was not that special, unique to its history, even though I give Deion Sanders a lot of credit for the job. Now, I'll just throw this out. Retiring Travis Hunter's jersey, I get it. He's a Heisman winner. You win a Heisman, you have a case to get your jersey retired, right?
Then it gets interesting.
Yes, but then it gets interesting. Retiring Shedeur's jersey. I want Shedeur on the Titans. I'm a Titans fan. I want Shedeur. He's better than Cam Ward. I want Shedeur Sanders. I think he's an NFL superstar. He shouldn't have his jersey retired.
Here's the problem, though. When you decide to retire Travis's jersey, and your son is the other guy who had a fantastic year, you just go ahead and retire them both. It makes it easier. And don't forget this, too. It's now a mercenary sport. If they ever want those numbers back to get a prospect, I don't know their numbers off the top of my head, but if a prospect says, I definitely want that number, I'm not coming, all you do is you call the kid in the NFL and you say, will you release it to him? And they're probably going to do it. Or another coach takes over at some point when Deion's the next coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And you just say, well, the heck with his tradition. I'm starting my own tradition, just like Deion did.
Yeah, you go, I'm unretiring jerseys because I choose to. You could do that, particularly Shedeur. I think you keep Travis retired because he won the Heisman. But this kind of got me to like thinking from like Tennessee's perspective, like who would be the Shedeur Sanders at Tennessee? Like a guy who was really good, but would not warrant a jersey retirement.
Well, I did it. I think this way is a little bit easier. I said what Vols should have their jersey retired. Dylan Sampson, SEC Player of the Year last year. Hendon Hooker, 2022 is a season Tennessee fans will never forget, or Cooper Mays, just because I like him. You have a fourth you would like to plug in there?
Dylan Sampson, Hendon Hooker, Cooper, Al Wilson, which his jersey should still be retired, and it's insane that it's not.
Oh, is it not?
It's not. No. It's still, he didn't meet the criteria that Tennessee has for like pro level success. So
Well, the answer is Al Wilson then out of that crew. Crew. No offense to Cooper or Dillon or Hendon Hooker, but it's Sampson, right?
I'll tell you this.
Wilson.
I'll tell you this, and I'm sorry. I don't really care how people think about me when I say this. Everybody you named deserves their jersey retired over Reggie White. And
year at Tennessee, just his senior year.
Yeah, Reggie White literally warrants as much of a jersey retirement as Shedeur Sanders did. What did he do? He had one All-American season where he set a record for sacks. Okay, so he set a record. How many other people have set records at Tennessee? Why don't we retire Dustin Colquitt's number for being the all-time leading punter at Tennessee? Okay, so it's like, sorry.
All the kids want the 47.
Exactly. Reggie White's number should be retired. How about this? Would you unretire Reggie White's number to retire Al Wilson's if you had to choose?
Oh, yeah, I probably would. By the way, General Ursa says, why? I mean, they were good players, but they didn't accomplish anything that significant. That's what I'm kind of asking you. With
Hunter won a Heisman. That counts.
No, I think he's talking about Tennessee's players that I mentioned.
Oh, okay.
So other than Al, you're right. They shouldn't. But I'm just curious who people will latch on to because, I mean, Dylan Sampson was arguably as good as Shedeur Sanders last year. Travis Hunter is a special player, retires numbers. I get that. But Shedeur Sanders doesn't. He was a very
good quarterback. That's it. Like again, there wasn't anything like he didn't set any records, win a Heisman or win a national championship or anything like that. So no, I don't get this one at all. Now I'll say that. And by the way, when they retired Peyton's jersey, for the record, it was after after he was putting together a Hall of Fame career in the NFL. Took him like 7 years, and then he came back and retired. But yeah, if we're talking about the Colorado players not doing anything special, look, I'll say like coming up front, I am going to go back on my soapbox on this. Yeah, it's Reggie White. Reggie White did nothing special at Tennessee. Greatest defensive lineman in NFL history, greatest defensive end in NFL history. I get it, but his production at Tennessee did not warrant a retired jersey at all.
Now some people rip it on the Colorado guys. Listen, I'll dance with you all day long with Shedeur Sanders. That shouldn't have his jersey retired, but Travis Hunter, is a three-way player. He caught a touchdown pass. He ran for a touchdown. I think he threw a touchdown. He did everything that you could possibly imagine. So,
and he won a Heisman. That's like a pinnacle. Yeah.
I have no problem with retiring his jersey. I probably would wait a little bit longer, but why is he doing this? It's because of recruiting, right?
Oh, yeah. He's trying to sell things. I agree. Deion is an ultimate marketer. I don't necessarily blame him on that. He's turning Colorado, look, college football is an age of mercenaries. He's making Colorado a mercenary school. I love the jokes about Tennessee retiring Nico's number. If Tennessee hung up the number 8, by the way, it would be Andy Kelly, whose number would be getting retired.
Oh, by the way, what's his name gets his jersey back? His high school jersey.
Who?
I can't remember. He had number 8, but he gets it. Keep talking. I'll remember it here in a second.
I don't even know at that point, but yeah. So, look, Andy Kelly, but unfortunately after that, not his fault, but Jonathan Crompton wore number 8. Jonathan Crompton was in a bad situation with 2 bad coaches coaching him. Tyler Bray wore number 8, put up numbers, but God, what a disgraceful person for Tennessee history.
Now, this is a good question. General Ursus brings up who was a better quarterback for Colorado, Cordell Stewart or Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders is the better pro prospect because of Cordell's height, but as far as in the season and what they did for Colorado and how they played in a different day and age where you don't throw for 300 yards falling out of bed, I think they're very comparable in their impact.
Cordell definitely had more team success, and you can maybe say was more productive overall, but I think Shedeur was even better Colorado because remember, during that time in the early 90s, Colorado actually had some talent around them. And anybody who watched Colorado last year it was Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and they literally single-handedly got that team to 9 wins and put them in playoff contention. I'll say that much. So
I think you're going to see that be in a really innovative aspect, an innovative year by Deion Sanders, because I think you're going to see more coaches realize that the playing field is a little bit more level because NIL and the transfer portal. And used to be your third receiver was no question better than Boo Carter, for instance. But now it's debatable because his athleticism. I think you're going to see a lot more of this.
Oh, I think so too. You're absolutely right about that. And you're going to be able to see. Basically, are we saying at this point that because talent's getting a little more evened out, college football is at a level where, like college basketball, you can land a special player, and that special player can take you to heights that back in the day a special one player couldn't do in college football.
Yeah, and I agree with Derek. I think Cordell was that type of player, sick to the cores. I like that saying. It's funny how we started with Nico. Is Cordell not almost the entire opposite of Nico? Doesn't have the athletic ability, didn't have a great arm, had a good arm, wasn't incredibly accurate, undersized, but by golly, when it's time to play, he plays incredibly hard for you.
Oh, no, you were right. Cordell did play incredibly hard. He's, I mean, but yeah. And I didn't realize, T. Scott saying what he said. So did he say a former Tennessee quarterback or just a former Tennessee player? Said Nico didn't have it up there. And
I don't know.
Because if it's a former Tennessee quarterback, there's only like 5 or 6 people I can think in my head that would say that to him.
Well, yeah, it's because typically they've had quarterbacks play for years, and the ones that live around town, you know who they are.
Yeah, exactly. The ones that you'd be close with. So
I have a feeling we could take a stab at it and get pretty close.
I think so too. I think we could too. But yes, as Derek said, Cordell had Michael Westbrook, Rashawn Salam. Cordell had a lot of talent. Also had a man who should still be in jail on the team, in Ray Caruth. But that's a different story.
I can't even remember what Ray did. What did he do?
Ray Caruth, he was mad that he got some woman pregnant, and he was mad that she wouldn't abort the baby, so he hired somebody to kill her and the baby.
Yeah. Is he still in jail, I guess?
No, he got out. She died, and the baby was born with cerebral palsy, permanently disabled. Now he wants to have a relationship with his son, but the grandmother won't let him, nor should she.
How did he get out?
He was only sentenced to 20 years. I know, horrible person. Ray Caruth is just an absolute. I'm sorry, some crimes should never be forgiven. And
Well, I agree, and I'm not making excuses for any other crime, but there is something entirely different when you premeditate abusing or killing your spouse. I mean, it wasn't a heat of the moment thing. That's what most domestic violence are called for. Heat of the moment. It wasn't even that. I mean, he has nothing to hang his hat on. He's just a terrible individual.
Yes, exactly. A terrible individual. And now, as somebody with a young son, the idea that you would even, the fact that kid was born with cerebral palsy and his disability is just I get sick thinking about it. And so, yeah, the fact that he's walking free is just. And meanwhile, there is people in jail for smoking weed, but he's walking free.
It is National Dueling Dinosaurs Day. What's the toughest dinosaur? Not the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Probably the Velociraptor, because they were so smart.
Pretty good. He's Caleb.
Did you see? They brought back the dire wolves, 12,000-year-old extinct species, very dangerous wolf, and they cloned the gene to bring it back. I'm like, guys, there's 4 movies made on why you shouldn't bring back extinct carnivorous species.
My understanding is that they can get the DNA. That's not hard. They could get that out of the dinosaur's blood marrow, but it's actually breathing life into it that's proved quite troublesome.
Yeah, and I don't think you want to breathe life back into dinosaurs.
No, we're good. All right, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios for